The Crush. The lunchroom in Miss Catherine's school for young gentlemen and ladies was generally fairly crowded. Students would gather together eating their lunch as they disparaged the amount of work they had to do and collectively counting down the minutes until they could leave the old building. The multitude of voices would mingle together in a cacophony of noise that usually annoyed Minerva. She would spend her lunch break fantasizing about sitting in the small nook in her room, rhythmically stitching pieces of fine cloth together beneath the warm rays of the summer sun. However, on this particular day, her mind was otherwise occupied. A soft smile flitted across her face as she stared across the lunchroom, entirely enamored. "You can't go 5 seconds without sighing. What's on your mind?" Minerva blinked, quickly dispelling the dreamlike haze from her mind as her head swiveled towards her sister. Her curls bounced around her shoulders as she moved. "I have not." "You kind of have, though." Juana smirked as Minerva's cheeks flooded with color, somehow playful and predatory at the same time. I just... Her eyes drifted across the room, her sister following her gaze. "Have a big crush on Gordon Estiel?" The taller girl wiggled her eyebrows suggestively as she leaned in. The stew Miss Greggs had made them cooling before her. "No? Uh-huh." Minerva leaned her arms on the table, her smile softening once more as she watched Gordon flip through a book. "He's just a nice guy." "That you're obsessed with?" Minerva shook her head, nearly knocking over her own soup as she raised her hands in a placating motion. "No!" Juana hopped up, her red skirts bouncing slightly as she moved. "I'm going to go talk to him." "No, Juana, please." The brunette ignored her, weaving her way around the other students as she made her way down the aisle of tables. Each step was decisive, the thump of her shoe against the aged floor echoing in Minerva's ears. Her heart felt like it was going to beat out of her chest as she watched Juana march her way across the room. The breath stalled in her lungs as she watched her sister tap Gordon on the shoulder and motion toward her. Gordon's gaze followed the motion, the weight of his eyes settling squarely on Minerva's shoulders. If the world had any mercy, a large hole would appear beneath her and swallow her up. An eternity of darkness would be better than the mixture of horror and embarrassment twisting her guts together like a bunch of tangled threads. Sadly, the world was a cruel place, because Juana had decided to bring the object of her affections over to the corner of the room where the sisters ate their new meal each day. At that moment, Minerva considered ripping all the buttons off her sister's dresses. The urge passed quickly, though, replaced with a fluttery feeling as Juana and Gordon stopped before her. Hi?" The statement came out as more of a question, her voice high-pitched and shaky. Her fingers curled into the pale purple fabric pooled around her legs. No one was paying attention to their small group, too focused on enjoying themselves before afternoon lessons started up. But the teenager couldn't help but feel like the eyes of the entire world were upon her. Gordon smiled, the outer corners of his eyes crinkling adorably. "Hello, your sister said you wanted to talk to me?" Minerva's gaze shot to Juana. The brunette was standing slightly behind Gordon. Her hair looked honey-colored in the warm light streaming through the windows. The two girls stared at each other, a battle of wills reminiscent of when they used to fight over a favorite doll until their mother would make them take turns with it. If only this battle could be solved so easily. Her sister was as stubborn as an ox when she wanted to be. If Minerva tried to escape this awkward encounter, Juana would make it her mission to force Gordon and her together at every opportunity, and Minerva just couldn't handle that kind of stress for the rest of the term. Her attention was brought back to the boy when the floor squeaked as he shuffled his feet. Words tumbled from her lips in a frantic rush. "You like the book we're reading with Miss Ashfield, right?" Her tone softened, the stiff smile on her face relaxing somewhat. "You looked so enthralled when she asked you to read that passage aloud last week." Gordon blinked, his head tilting slightly to the side. He was perfect, and Minerva struggled to pay attention to what he was saying as her fingers tingled with warmth. Still, she wrenched her melting heart into line just in time to make out his response. "Yeah, The Grey Castle is one of my favorites. Odette Leonore is a genius." "I know, right?" The words were loud, and Minerva winced as Juana coughed to hide her laughter. She anxiously smoothed out her skirts, hoping desperately that her sweaty palms weren't leaving a mark. With a slight exhale, she pulled back her shoulders and said, her prose is magnificent. I've never seen another author with such skill in the use of metaphor." Gordon's smile grew, his hands tightening around his schoolbooks. "Do you mind if I sit?" "Oh, of course." Minerva blushed, her eyes widening as she scooted over on the wooden bench. Of course you can sit here." She was certain by this point that her face was the same shade of red as the fabric sitting at the top of her sewing basket at home. Luckily, Gordon didn't seem to notice. He sat down, placing his books at his side before turning to her. "What did you think about Leonore's use of color-based metaphors in The Grey Castle?" "They were great. I especially loved the one comparing the Duchess's dress to a pink dawn. The way she described the way the skirt twirled made me feel like I was in the ballroom with her." Then they were off, bouncing ideas and opinions off each other with glee. The conversation was a bit awkward. There were plenty of odd pauses and stumbling words, but Minerva didn't mind. She was so enthralled by the boy sitting by her side that she barely registered Juana picking up her books and making her way to some of her other friends. Gordon's eyes were soft, and Minerva sighed as the tangled threads at the center of her chest settled around their spools once more. She was going to have to give Juana a gift for doing what she couldn't do. Maybe some embroidery on one of her dresses? A new ribbon? She could think about it later. At that moment, all she wanted to do was bask in the warmth of having the object of her affection so close. Her senses would return to her eventually, hopefully.
The End. Written by MeadowofBluebells. If you have any prompts you would like to suggest, let me know in the comments below. I'd be happy for any practice I can get. Have a good rest of your day.